The guy at the front door looked at my sneakers the way some people look at a wet dog that wandered into a gallery. Not disgust, exactly. More like certainty. His eyes traveled up, scuffed canvas shoes, dark jeans that had seen too many laundromats, a plain gray hoodie, and he landed on my face with the kind of polite boredom reserved for people who don't belong in expensive places. "I'm here for the St. Clair engagement party," I said. He didn't even check a list. He didn't ask my name. He just smiled, slow and smug, and angled his body so he completely blocked the glass entrance of the Aldercrest Hotel. "Service entrance is around the side," he said, pointing to a bronze plaque near a narrow alleyway, "Deliveries/staff." It wasn't just the words. It was the way he said service, like he was doing me a favor by using a syllable I might recognize. I could have ended it in 5 seconds. My ID was in my pocket. One phone call would have turned his little kingdom into a crater. And part of me wanted that, wanted the clean snap of instant justice. But I stayed still. Because I wasn't here to win a small fight in the doorway. I was here to understand something bigger. And the best revenge, real revenge, isn't a slap. It's a full meal, served in courses, while the person who underestimated you keeps asking for seconds. If only I knew what I was walking into. My name is Rowan Kim. I'm 35, and my family still thinks I do something online. That's the phrase my mother uses when she's trying to sound supportive without having to explain me to her friends. My sister Talia is the kind of woman who can walk into a room and immediately locate the social power outlets, who's plugged in, who isn't, and where she needs to stand to get the brightest charge. It wasn't always like that. When we were kids, Talia was just loud. She made friends easily. She cried easily too. She loved glitter, hated homework, and could talk her way out of consequences like she was born negotiating. Then she got older, and loud became polished. Crying became strategic. And negotiating became her whole personality. 2 weeks earlier, she'd called me with a voice that sounded like a smile trying not to crack. "Okay," she said, "so, please don't take this the wrong way." That sentence is always a warning label. "Evan's family is very traditional," she continued. "And tonight matters. It's important." "I'm aware engagement parties are usually important," I said. She laughed, but it was thin. "No, I mean, important. Like family important. Like image important. Like, please just look nice, Rowan." There it was. Not "come celebrate me." Not "I want you there." Just, "please don't embarrass me." And, she added, like she was remembering to pick up milk, "maybe don't talk about your online thing." "My online thing," I repeated. "You know what I mean," she said quickly. "Evan's parents won't get it. They're old money. They'll hear platform and think you sell crystals or something." I stared at my apartment wall while she talked about outfits and appearances like she was planning a military operation. "Okay," I said. "I'll be there." What I didn't tell her was that I'd already planned to be there. The Aldercrest wasn't just a hotel. It was one property in a collection of 14 across the country, historic buildings restored, modern systems quietly embedded, the kind of places where rich people feel like they're buying heritage instead of a room key. 3 years ago, I bought the Aldercrest Hotel first, when it was bleeding money and charm in equal measure. I'd built a booking and operations platform that started as a side project and turned into a machine. When it sold, I didn't buy a sports car. I bought a broken hotel. Then I bought another. Then another. And I did it through a holding company that kept my personal name buried in paperwork. Not because I was ashamed, because I learned early that people treat you differently when they think you're powerful. They hide things. They lie better. They act. If you want the truth, you have to be small enough that no one bothers performing for you. So yes, I picked the hoodie on purpose. I told myself it was an audit. A check-in. A way to watch my own business breathe without the mask. That's what I told myself. But if I'm being honest, there was a softer reason too. A human reason. I wanted to know if my sister loved me enough to see me when I didn't look useful to her. But I had no idea what was coming next. The service entrance wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some back alley horror show. It was just a narrower door with a keypad, a small awning, and a smell that told the truth. Garlic. Bleach. Hot oil. The faint metallic bite of ice buckets. Inside, the hallway was a conveyor belt of movement. Carts squeaked. Someone argued into a headset. A woman in a black vest hustled past with a stack of folded napkins balanced like she'd been trained by circus performers. I barely got 2 steps before a man with forearms like tree trunks shoved a clipboard toward me. "You're the temp," he barked. "No," I said automatically. He didn't hear me. Or didn't care. He thrust a folded apron into my hands and pushed me toward a swinging door that had a sign reading "Kitchen, authorized staff only." "And don't just stand there," he snapped. "We're already behind." I could have stopped it. I could have said my name, flashed my credentials, pulled rank. Instead, I tied the apron. The kitchen hit me like weather. Heat rolled out in waves. Pans hissed. Knives struck boards with a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat. A line of chefs moved in practice choreography, no wasted motion, no spare breath. A woman with a tight bun and sharp eyes glanced at me. "You know oysters?" "I can learn," I said. She slid a tray toward me without hesitation. "Then learn fast. We're shucking for the first pass, and don't slice your palm. If you bleed in my shellfish, I will personally end you." "Understood," I said, and meant it. 2 minutes later, my hands were wet and cold and aching from leverage as I worked a dull blade into stubborn shells. Brine splashed my wrists. The smell was ocean dark and clean. I was focusing hard enough that I almost didn't hear the scream of my name from the corridor. "Rowan." I looked up. Talia stood in the doorway like a magazine cover that had escaped into real life. She wore a pale dress that probably cost more than my first laptop. Her hair was smooth, glossy, perfect. Her smile was pinned in place. Her gaze hit me, and slid. Past the apron. Past my messy ponytail. Past the oyster tray. She looked at the man with the clipboard and gave a little laugh that sounded like it had been trained. "Oh," she said, waving a manicured hand, "sorry, she's with me. She gets confused. She gets confused." Like I was a stray cat that followed her home. The clipboard man nodded, relieved. "Thought she was a delivery." Talia laughed again, higher this time. "No, no. She's just, you know." "Just what?" "Just me, apparently. The sister you bring but don't claim." I felt something hot and sharp move through my chest like a swallowed splinter. I bit the inside of my cheek, hard enough to taste copper. Talia leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Can you not do this right now?" "Do what?" I asked quietly. She flicked her eyes to the staff. "Be this. Evan's parents are here. Please. Just find a way to look normal." I stared at her. "I'm shucking oysters." She smiled like that was my point. Like she was winning. And after that, she whispered, "Maybe go around to the main entrance. I'll have someone let you in. Just, please don't make a scene." Then she turned on her heel and vanished back into the polished world upstairs. Behind me, the bun woman, chef, manager, maybe both, snorted. That her? I didn't answer. She's been in here 3 times today, the woman continued, cracking a shell with brutal efficiency. Changed the schedule twice. Told us the champagne has to be colder but not too cold. How cold is that? I asked. The woman's eyes flashed with humor. It's the temperature of nonsense. A dishwasher, a kid, really, leaned closer, lowering his voice like he was sharing state secrets. Her future mother-in-law just made the florist cry. I paused. Why? The kid shrugged. Apparently the roses looked new money. I forced an exhale through my nose. New money. Old money. No money. Everyone talking like wealth was a personality trait instead of a number. I kept shucking. And that's when everything shifted. Because between the heat and the noise, I caught a glimpse through the small window in the kitchen door, just a slice of the hallway beyond. A woman in a navy dress stood with her back turned, posture rigid as a ruler. Beside her, a young man in an AV polo nodded rapidly. The woman, elegant, precise, pressed something into his hand. Cash. Then she pointed toward the ballroom staircase, and the AV guy hurried away like he'd just been given a mission. The navy-dressed woman turned slightly, and I saw her profile. Margot St. Clair. Evan's mother. And I didn't like the way she smiled. But I had no idea what was coming next. I finished the oyster tray with numb fingers and asked for a bathroom break. No one questioned it. In a kitchen like that, survival is everyone's religion. The service elevator was empty, thank God, because the moment the doors slid shut, I let my shoulders drop like I'd been carrying a load too heavy to admit. I pressed the button for the executive level. Not the ballroom floor. Not the guest suites. The elevator hummed upward, smooth and quiet. I watched the numbers climb and tried to ignore the sting of Talia's words. She gets confused. I'd heard versions of that my whole life. Rowan's too intense. Rowan's too serious. Rowan doesn't get it. And maybe I didn't get what she got, the hunger to be chosen by people who barely saw her. The need to be praised by strangers with old last names. The doors opened onto a hallway that smelled like nothing, filtered air, new paint, expensive calm. I walked to a plain door with no nameplate and placed my thumb on the scanner. A soft beep. Inside, my private suite waited, minimal, quiet, functional. A desk. A small sitting area. Floor-to-ceiling windows with the city laid out like a circuit board. On the far wall, a bank of monitors showed live feeds from every public area of the hotel. I tapped a screen and pulled up the ballroom. The engagement party looked like a staged dream, crystal, candlelight, towering arrangements of flowers chosen to impress people who think beauty is a competition. Talia stood near the center, laughing too loudly at something Evan said. He looked handsome in that polished way men look when they've never had to worry about rent. Margot St. Clair held court near the bar, surrounded by women who all wore the same posture, relaxed, self-assured, slightly bored. I scanned for the AV guy. He was near the sound booth, leaning in to whisper with another staff member. He tucked something into his pocket. A USB drive. I rewound the footage 5 minutes, then 10, watching the interaction again. Margot's body language was unmistakable, sharp gestures, pointed instructions. The AV guy nodded like a dog trained by fear. My stomach tightened. This wasn't about flowers or napkins. I grabbed my phone and called Nina, my head of security. She picked up on the second ring. Rowan. Are you on site? I asked. In the office, she said. Do you need something? I need eyes, I said, keeping my voice even. Ballroom sound booth. AV tech with a USB drive. Margot St. Clair gave him cash in the corridor. There was a pause, brief, focused. Copy, Nina said. Do you want him removed? Not yet, I said. Just monitor. And quietly pull the feed from hallway cam B12 and ballroom cam A3. I want everything archived. Understood, she said. Rowan, is this an audit? I looked at the screen where my sister smiled like she was trying to earn oxygen. It's something, I said. Then I hung up. I changed back into the apron. I tucked my hoodie sleeves up. I pulled my hair tighter into a bun. And I went back down. The transition from the service corridors to the ballroom felt like moving between planets. Downstairs smelled like perfume and polished wood and money trying to be eternal. Glass clinked. Music drifted, soft, generic, designed not to offend anyone with taste. I picked up a tray of champagne from a service station and merged into the crowd. It's amazing how invisible you become when you're holding a tray. People will take a glass from your hand without meeting your eyes. They'll lean toward you and say, "Darling," like you're a piece of furniture that pours. And that's when I heard Margot St. Clair speaking to Talia with the voice of someone casually arranging a financial transaction. "We'll need to talk about the wedding arrangements," Margot said, swirling her drink. "Family contributions. Investments. Evan's future." Talia nodded, eager. "Of course. My parents are supportive. And Rowan, my sister, she's very successful." Margot's eyes sharpened. "Is she?" "Oh yes," Talia said quickly, smiling too hard. "She's an investor. Very private. Very high level." I almost laughed. Talia didn't know what I did, but she knew what it sounded like. She was using me as a fantasy bank account. Margot's smile grew smoother. "How wonderful," she murmured. "We love families who understand legacy." Legacy. I'd negotiated enough deals to hear the word for what it was: leverage. My grip tightened on the tray. But I had no idea what was coming next. A man sidled close to the service station as I refilled the glasses. He was Evan's older cousin, Miles, the one who wore his wealth like cologne. He leaned in, eyes scanning me like he was shopping. "Working all night?" he asked. "Until the job's done," I said. He smiled. "That's a shame. You deserve a break." His hand landed on my lower back like it belonged there. I stepped away smoothly, shifting the tray between us. "I'm fine." He chuckled like I'd flirted. "You don't have to be fine. I can make things easier." A folded bill appeared between his fingers and slid onto my tray, meant to look casual, meant to feel like power. I kept my face calm. "No, thank you." He tilted his head. "You sure?" I met his eyes for half a second, long enough to make him feel the weight of being seen. Then I turned away, moving into the crowd before my mouth said something that would blow my cover. Near the business center hallway, I slipped into the side room and pulled out my phone. I didn't need miracles. I needed facts. Public records weren't hard. Neither were quiet calls when you'd spent years building a network. I searched the St. Clair Family Foundation. I searched Margot's name connected to properties. At first it looked normal. Then the cracks appeared. Liens. Court filings. A second mortgage on the estate in Connecticut. Then a third. A lawsuit settlement quietly sealed 2 years ago. I felt the cold clarity settle in. The street Clairs weren't old money. They were old appearance. And they weren't looking down at Talia because she didn't belong. They were looking at her because they needed something from her. A bailout. A rescue. A clean infusion of cash dressed up as family contribution. I exhaled slowly. Upstairs, Margot wasn't sabotaging the engagement because Talia was beneath them. She was sabotaging it because if they couldn't control it, they'd rather burn it. And then I noticed something else on the ballroom monitors when I checked my phone feed, because Nina had sent a secure link. The AV guy approached the sound booth again. USB in hand. His posture said he was about to plug it in. If only I knew what I was walking into. Because at that exact moment, I saw David, my general manager, appear at the ballroom entrance holding a folder. He had the face of a man about to deliver bad news quietly. I knew what that folder meant before he took a single step. A bounced deposit check. An unpaid vendor invoice. A problem that couldn't stay hidden much longer. And that's when everything shifted. I slipped back to the service corridor and called David. He answered with a whisper. "Rowan, give me 20 minutes, I said. There was a pause. "I was looking for you." "You found me," I said. "You just haven't seen me yet." 20 minutes. He exhaled. Understood. I ended the call and stood in the narrow hallway for a second, listening to the muffled music through the walls. I wasn't deciding whether to reveal who I was. I was deciding how. Because the truth isn't just truth. It's timing. It's placement. It's impact. If I announced myself too early, Margot would retreat into excuses and private conversations. She'd smear in whispers. She'd make it about misunderstandings. If I waited, she'd commit fully. And she already had. Nina texted me, USB intercepted. Pulling content now. Also, hallway footage shows Margot going through Talia's clutch. Clear shot. My jaw tightened. Going through her clutch. Not just sabotage, invasion. I typed back, save everything. Back up to secure server. Do not confront yet. Then I looked down at my apron. It was damp at the hem. Smelled faintly like lemon and brine. A costume. A shield. And a test. I could hear my sister's laugh from the ballroom, too bright, too practiced, like she was trying to convince herself she belonged. I made my decision. Not to punish. Not to destroy. But to stop the lie from swallowing her whole. But I had no idea what was coming next. I returned to my executive suite for exactly 3 minutes, long enough to open the archived files Nina uploaded. The USB contained an audio track labeled with something generic, toast_edit_final. I played 10 seconds and felt my stomach drop. It was a chopped-up recording, edited to sound like Talia mocking the street players, bragging about taking their money, laughing about old fools with empty wallets. It wasn't just sabotage. It was a match meant to light a room full of gasoline. And it would have worked, because people believe what humiliates them. They believe what confirms their fear. Nina's message popped up again. We also have footage of cash exchange. Clear. I stared at the screens. Margot had planned to paint my sister as a greedy liar to make Evan doubt her. To make the engagement implode. To protect their legacy. And also, if the engagement didn't implode, she'd still have the leverage of knowing she could. Either outcome benefited her. I called my CFO next, not because I needed permission, but because I needed confirmation. Run the St. Clair accounts, I said. Quietly. My CFO didn't ask why. That's the gift of competent people. They don't demand drama. 2 minutes later, she texted back a summary that made me grimly satisfied. They're drowning. 6 to 8 weeks from foreclosure unless something changes. So that was it. Talia was a lifeboat they wanted to climb into, or puncture. I went back down to the ballroom and watched the room with new eyes. Margot moved like a conductor, placing people in conversations like pieces on a board. Miles hovered, scanning for anyone he could impress or intimidate. Evan looked tense, smiling when someone watched him, deflating when they didn't. Talia clutched her champagne flute too tightly, knuckles pale. I stepped into the service corridor and found Chef Inez, bun woman, commander of the kitchen. Talia's been changing your schedule, I said. Inez's mouth tightened. We're holding it together with tape and prayer. Serve dinner at the original time, I said. Original menu. She blinked. Who are you? Someone who doesn't like chaos, I said. And someone who will back you. Inez studied me for half a second, then nodded once, slow and decisive. That moment mattered more than people realize. Respect isn't given by titles. It's given by clarity. Back in the corridor, I called David again. Approach the table in 10 minutes, I said. And when you do, ask for Rowan Kim. David inhaled like he'd just stepped into deep water. Okay. And David, I added. Yes? Don't soften it. Say the words. Let people hear them. He hesitated. That will cause a scene. Yes, I said quietly. It will. Then I walked back into the ballroom with my tray. Because scenes aren't always chaos. Sometimes they're truth finally getting enough space to breathe. If only I knew what I was walking into. Because the moment I re-entered, Talia took the microphone. Talia's voice trembled with excitement. Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. Applause rose, polite and practiced. She smiled at Evan, then at Margot, like she was waiting for approval to keep existing. This night is so special, she continued. It's the joining of two families. Margot's mouth curved into something almost like a smile. And, Talia added, eyes glittering with nerves, my sister Rowan is here tonight. She's very private, but she's been observing everything, because she's incredibly successful, and later she'll have an announcement about the wedding. My tray tilted slightly. Observing everything. Talia didn't even know how true that was. Across the room, I saw the AV guy reach for the sound booth again. And I saw Nina's security officer, blending in, calm, step close. The USB never got plugged in. Talia handed the microphone back, and the room swelled with conversation again. That's when David entered. He moved with his usual calm professionalism, folder held at his side. He approached the head table, leaning in politely. I saw Margot straighten. Talia's face lit up. David's lips formed words I couldn't hear over the music, but I recognized the shape, Ms. Kim. Talia stood. Yes, hi, she said, stepping forward eagerly. David walked past her. Just, past. He kept scanning until his eyes landed on me in the apron. For a split second, even he looked surprised, because he hadn't seen me dressed like this before. Then he recovered instantly, stepping toward me with the quiet confidence of someone doing his job well. He held out the folder. Ms. Kim, he said clearly, voice carrying, we have an urgent situation regarding tonight's party payment. The deposit check has been returned for insufficient funds. The silence that followed was absolute. It wasn't just quiet. It was the kind of silence that makes you aware of air. Talia froze, expression collapsing from confusion into horror. Margot's face tightened. Miles turned his head sharply like a predator hearing movement. Talia's voice burst out, shrill and defensive. What is this? David, this is a mistake. Security, can you remove her? She's not supposed to, she pointed at me as if I was a stain. That's when I untied my apron. I folded it carefully, the way you fold something you're done needing. I handed it to a passing server, who stared at me like I'd just performed a magic trick. Then I looked at the room. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I think there's been some confusion, I said. My name is Rowan Kim. Talia's eyes darted, frantic. And, I continued, I own the Aldercrest Hotel. A ripple moved through the crowd like wind across water. Margot's jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle jump. I also own 13 other properties in the Aldercrest collection, I added. This building is part of my portfolio. Talia made a small sound, half inhale, half disbelief. You, she whispered. No. Your online thing. My online thing, I said, still calm, is the operations platform that runs booking, staffing, inventory, and vendor management in all 14 hotels. The room shifted again, people leaning, eyes widening, phones lifting. And I've been quiet tonight, I said, letting the words settle, because I wanted to see how people behave when they think no one important is watching. I looked directly at Margot. Her gaze was sharp as glass. Then I turned to David. Thank you. I opened the folder and pulled out the printed notice. Return deposit, insufficient funds, time-stamped. A record. Not an accusation. Then I lifted my phone. I'm going to show you something, I said. Because tonight isn't just about a bounced check. A few people laughed nervously. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." I connected my phone to the ballroom's AV system, because every Aldercrest property has an override channel for emergencies. The screens that had been displaying engagement photos went black. Then footage appeared. A hallway camera angle, Margot handing cash to the AV tech. Pointing. Instructing. Gasps cut through the room. The footage switched. Another angle, Margot at a table, Talia's clutch left unattended. Margot opening it. Fingers moving quickly. A phone held low, snapping photos. Talia's mouth opened. She, Margot lifted a hand. This is taken out of context. I didn't respond. I let the footage speak. Then I played the audio file from the USB, not because I wanted to embarrass Talia, but because I wanted everyone to hear the weapon Margot had built. This, I said over the speakers, is an edited recording designed to make my sister sound like she's using your family. It was meant to play tonight, in this room, without her knowledge. Evan turned toward his mother, shock on his face. Mom. Margot's lips parted. Evan, sweetheart, no, he said, voice cracking. What is this? Miles stepped forward with a laugh that tried to turn danger into charm. Okay, this is dramatic. We can talk privately, and you, I said, turning my gaze to him, have been harassing staff all night. His smile faltered. You put your hands on me, I said evenly, and offered money for access. There are cameras in the corridor too. A few people made low, ugly sounds of recognition. Miles's face flushed, and he took a step back like the floor had changed under him. Talia's eyes filled with tears. Rowan, she whispered, voice thin. Why didn't you tell me? I looked at her for a long moment. Because you didn't want to know, I said softly. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you changed the subject. The words landed like something heavy finally set down. Then I turned back to Margot. And now the part you won't enjoy, I said. The St. Clair family is not in a position to demand anyone's money. Margot's chin lifted. How dare you, I'm not guessing, I said, and tapped my phone. Public records appeared on the screens, property filings, lien notices, court documents. Nothing private. Nothing illegal. 3 mortgages on your estate, I said. A settlement that drained your foundation. Credit lines maxed. And a deposit check that bounced tonight. A murmur rolled through the crowd, whispers turning into a low roar. Evan's face went pale. Mom, is any of this true? Margot's eyes flicked to the side, searching for control. Evan, this is business. This is my life, he said, voice sharp now. Talia turned toward Evan, panicked. I didn't know, Evan, I swear, I know, Evan said, and the way he said it surprised me. He sounded steady. I didn't know either. Margot stepped forward again, voice tightening. We were protecting you. By humiliating her? Evan snapped, gesturing at Talia. By stealing her information? By trying to frame her? Margot's composure cracked, just slightly. We needed to know what kind of family we were joining. I exhaled once, controlled. Now, I said, raising the folder so everyone could see it, here's what's going to happen. I glanced around the room, not at the guests, but at the staff hovering at the edges, watching with the cautious attention of people who've been blamed too many times. The total cost of tonight's event is $38,600, not including gratuity, I said. The deposit was meant to secure the vendors. It failed. A few guests sucked in breaths. I have 2 options, I continued. 1, I report theft of services. That becomes a police matter, and it becomes public in a different way. Margot stiffened. Or 2, I said, the street clears leave quietly now, and I cover the full cost as a gift to my sister. Talia's breath hitched. But, I added, that gift is not a blank check. It's not a bailout. And it comes with boundaries. I turned to Margot. You will not contact my family again outside of Evan. You will not involve yourself in their finances. And you will not step foot in an Aldercrest property without a reservation under your own name. Margot's eyes narrowed. You can't, I can, I said calmly. It's my property. The room held its breath. Evan stepped forward, voice trembling. Mom. Dad. Leave. His father, who had been silent all night like a decorative statue, finally spoke in a low voice. Evan, leave, Evan repeated, louder. Margot's face tightened into something dangerous and small. For a second, I thought she might fight. Then she looked around, at the phones recording, at the screens behind her, at the staff watching. And she realized she'd lost control. She grabbed her husband's arm, stiff and furious, and walked toward the exit with the dignity of someone trying to pretend they chose the fall. Miles followed, head down, avoiding every eye in the room. As they passed the main doors, I saw the same gatekeeper from earlier, the one who'd sent me around back, standing frozen, horror written on his face. Our eyes met. I didn't smile. I just nodded once, like a quiet note, remember this. And that's when everything shifted, again. Because with the street clears gone, the room didn't immediately celebrate. It exhaled. Like a body realizing it can finally breathe. Talia stood trembling, mascara beginning to run. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time in years. I'm sorry, she whispered. Her voice wasn't theatrical. It was bare. I didn't want to see you, she said, tears spilling now. I wanted you to be smaller. So I could feel bigger. The honesty punched the air out of the room. I walked toward her slowly, feeling the eyes of everyone on us. When I reached her, she threw her arms around me so hard it almost hurt. Her face pressed into my hoodie, leaving damp heat and makeup behind. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. I held her, because she was still my sister, while something in my chest loosened. You want to know the worst part? I murmured near her ear. She nodded frantically. If you'd asked, I said, I would have helped. Quietly. No questions. That's what family is supposed to do. Evan approached us like he wasn't sure he was allowed into the scene. I'm sorry, he said, voice hoarse. I didn't know about any of it. I knew things were tight, but not like this. Talia pulled back, wiping her face. Your parents are unreal. Evan gave a sad, helpless laugh. That's one word for it. She took a breath, shaking. If you still want to marry me, knowing I'm not rich, knowing I've been pretending, knowing I treated my own sister like staff, Evan swallowed, eyes wet. Yes. Not romantic. Not cinematic. But real. And real was the only thing worth saving. That night ended quietly after the storm. Inez gave the kitchen the rest of the shift off, full pay, plus a bonus from my budget for having to survive a client who thought cruelty was the same as standards. The untouched food went to a local shelter through our partner program. The flowers, towering, expensive, ridiculous, were delivered to a nursing home the next morning. The gatekeeper found me near midnight. He apologized so fast he tripped over his own words. I told him, honestly, that he'd been doing his job. Just, next time, I said, look at someone's face before you decide where they belong. A week later, Talia texted me a photo of herself in housekeeping uniform at 5:10 a.m., hair tied back, eyes sleepy but smiling. Day one of learning who I really am, she wrote. Evan started in our accounting department 2 days after that. He was awkward at first, like a man learning how to hold his own life without his family's grip, but he worked hard. He asked questions. He listened. 2 months later, the Street Clares lost their estate to foreclosure. It wasn't my doing. It was math catching up to a lie. Margot threatened to sue me, but threats don't hold weight when everything shown was public record and security footage from my own building. A year after the engagement party, Talia and Evan got married in the Aldercrest garden on a quiet afternoon. No chandeliers. No towering roses. Just soft light and people who actually loved them. And when it was time for Talia to walk down the aisle, she insisted on entering through the side gate that staff used to bring in linens, our version of a service entrance. She paused there, breathed in, and looked back at me. This, she whispered, is where my real life started. I squeezed her hand. And for the first time, she didn't need to be bigger than me. She just needed to be herself. If you liked this story, feel free to subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one.